I heard the crowd was going to be a little bigger, but Johnny Cupcakes is still speaking across the street. So I was kidding. I loved it. I'm joking. I loved it. It was great. I'm kidding. That was joking. I kid with Johnny. So as the large type there says, my name is Matt Stevens. The title of my talk is Subject to Change Without Notice, and I thought I'd be really clever there. Joseph asked me for a name for my speech, and I didn't have one yet, so I was like, oh, this would be great because it's got a double meaning. It's like how doing personal work has changed my life. But I had several people say, are you actually speaking at that thing? Because it says subject to change without notice. I don't know if you're actually going to be there or not. So a little out-clevered myself. So a bit about me, real quick for context. I'm a designer and illustrator, and I take my work very seriously. I like to do things that are kind of really about changing the world, like a meat gun, like a gun that combines a meat grinder and a ray gun. That's, stuff like that's really important to me. So I'm a family man. I have a wife and 3 kids. I'm from North Carolina. I don't know if many of you know much about North Carolina, but I'm the handsome one there. This was a piece actually I did for North Carolina for Dan Casaro's project of illustrating your state motto. I've always really loved our state motto. I'm a Batman nerd. Love Batman. The Joel Schumacher movies did not happen, just in case you're wondering. I love Nike stuff, as you could probably tell. It's kind of during the golden age for me of Nike, late 80s, 90s. Bo Jackson, Michael Jordan, Andre Agassi, all that stuff. I just absolutely love it. So this is like a really scary word to me, lecture or keynote or whatever word you want to use for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk about my story because that really helps me. It makes me less nervous. Hopefully it's more interesting for you guys. So that's what I'm going to do. So just for a little bit of context, I thought I'd do a little timeline up here. So this is my design career only. This is not the other parts of my life. So for about 5 years, I'd say, my design career, I was young and dumb. Some would argue it's longer than that, or maybe I'm in the dumb part still, I don't know. But I'm amazed by so many designers out there that at such an early time in their career seem to have their act together, and I didn't. I spent a long time sort of banking on somebody else to kind of make it happen for me. Call it safety, call it avoiding risk, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's a lot of waiting, a lot of hoping. Working at a small agency, Starbucks is going to knock on our door any day and ask us to do this wonderful branding project. I just know it. So I spent a lot of time. Sometimes I regret that time. I try not to go down that route, but I would say that about 10 or so years there. What I'm going to focus on for my talk today is kind of the last 2 to 3 years. I feel like I woke up a little bit. And what I want to talk about is what woke me up. So, you're probably wondering at this point, what could be the big inspirational thing that kind of kick-started this new phase of your career? And, it's pretty amazing what can do that. This is a Dunkin Donuts. The Dunkin Donuts is actually where this happened. Wasn't this cool? Like there wasn't like this cool mascot guy out there. But I was in a Dunkin Donuts one morning. The ugly truth is that I was feeling really burned out. I was feeling like I didn't know if I wanted to do design anymore. I had stayed at this small agency for a long time, and we had just let half our staff go again. And I was like, this isn't getting anywhere. I don't like what I'm doing. I don't think any of the things are going to happen that I was hoping was going to happen. So I was in this Dunkin Donuts, and I saw this little script logo. It's like, that's pretty cool. I wonder what that's about. Well, I started looking around the store, and they were doing this 60th anniversary rebrand, or not even a rebrand, it was kind of like a promotion. So it just caught my eye and kind of stuck with me, and I started poking around online and started to see what kind of the rich history that Dunkin Donuts has, all the cool signage, all the neat stuff they've done. And I particularly fixated on this little kind of wooden-legged guy over here called Dunky, which I thought was interesting. For some really strange reason, I wanted to redesign Dunky. So in my own time, I started redesigning Dunky. So I did this little refresh of Dunky, and I thought it was pretty cool and had a lot of fun doing it. And I started reimagining what Dunkin Donuts could have done with the 60th anniversary rebrand, because this was the kind of work that I wished I was doing, so I just started doing it. To be perfectly honest, I had no plan. I started doing packaging, bags, cups, started doing apparel. Everybody loves doing apparel. The thing I learned is most people, when they say, if you ever produce that, I'd buy it, most of those people are liars. So get names and addresses when anybody says that. Because people said, oh, I totally buy that, and then I put it on Threadless and nobody cared. So I continued to do this. I even did like a 60th anniversary mark. Started doing like decade-specific apparel. Like this was based on their sign from the 50s. I did a 60s version. I did the Keep on Dunkin' shirt in the 70s. Some of you may be too young to remember this, so I put this here for reference. I did the Dunky Say Relax shirt for the 80s. About this time, most of my friends thought I was pretty insane because I was continuing to work like a month on this project that didn't exist. And at some point I had to sort of put a stop to it, and I sent it out to a couple of blogs, and I sent it out to Brand New, which is a design rebrand blog, which most of you are probably familiar with. I sent this note to Armin, and I was like, whatever, you know, it's not the kind of thing he's going to post. He didn't have any of his sister sites going at the time. He only had the main site. And I actually got a reply, and he was actually interested in it. And he did a big April Fool's rebrand every year, and he didn't have anything for that. And he was like, let's work together and let's do this and do it for the site. So we posted it. And my piddly little website that I'd had up for a couple of months that had nothing on it suddenly started getting flooded because he posted a nice thank you for being involved in it. I actually got contacted by Dunkin Donuts. I thought I was going to get sued or something. But I ended up doing some work for them about a year later, kind of related to this. And then about a year later, I got this email. The subject line was stolen logo. And so I was like, well, that's interesting. Well, it was actually from Armin. And just as a refresher, Dunky, not Dunky. Someone had stolen Dunky and dropped him off a building and given him bacon legs or something. I don't know what's going on. But that was fake Dunky. So let's review. It's a blatant ripoff of an unofficial version of a real mascot for a pretend rebrand that I did. It's getting complicated. It's getting very complicated. So I found the owner of this store actually in Manhattan, Kansas. And I did not assume that she knew that the logo was stolen, and I called her and she was very apologetic and said I didn't know. And I said, well, here's the deal. I don't want you to use it. I don't even own that mascot. You could make the case that it's original, but I'm not comfortable with it. It looks too much like what I've done. I don't want people to think I did it. So you need to not use it, but I'd love to work with you if you're developing stuff for your Varsity Donuts. So I just want to take a minute to say, I know there's a lot of talk about how much we should get paid and reasons to do things, and I come down on you kind of got to do it for your own reasons. I think there are things that hurt the profession, but I think sometimes I saw an opportunity here. She didn't have much money, but I liked what the project was about. I didn't agree to do it for free, but I said, I know you're getting deals on a lot of things. I said, put me on that same sliding scale that everybody else is on, and I'll do it for very little money. I just think having money involved creates a better dynamic for a project. So this was the new mascot I developed. His name was Otis, and developed just a bunch of stuff for them. I did the script mark. I had this idea to do these little pennants in the donuts. Mug, cups. I mean, basically what I did for Dunkin Donuts. I'm doing it again. Bags. I love doing t-shirts. Doing t-shirts. More t-shirts. So this is Manhattan, Kansas, and they're known as the Little Apple. So I did a lot of things about the Little Apple. I even did a little JV shirt. They were talking about renting scooters and bikes, so I did a little varsity scooter club mark. And then these are the marks. Well, I'm here to say that doing it for my own reasons didn't work out so well. The only thing they ended up using was the script mark. I don't know why, because I never got emails returned to me. She just kind of dropped off the face of the earth. So it was, you know, it kind of sucked. It was, I felt like I'd really poured my heart and soul into it, doing it for next to nothing, and it was, you know, it was very frustrating. But the story has somewhat of a happy ending. So my fake donut project, plus my failed donut project, led to a real restaurant project. So a gentleman in the town where I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, was starting a new restaurant concept called JJ's Red Hots. He's from the Buffalo area of New York, and they serve Red Hots up there. I'd like to give you a minute to tell wiener jokes amongst yourselves if you want to. Just get them out of your system. Go ahead. Everybody done? Cool. We have a no wiener joke policy on the team. But, you know, just keep them to yourself. So developed a family of marks for this. And this has been just an amazing project, just a ton of fun. Been doing this a long time, and this is one of the best projects I've ever done as far as just how much I'm enjoying it. These were some marks I showed in the beginning. As you can see, JJ was very evil in the beginning. He had horns and a trident, which now that I look back is a little over the top. That's okay. This was a mood board that was presented. This is a sort of a brand pattern that was really developed as the deli paper. So everything's gonna be served in very plain brown craft packaging, and then let the deli paper dress it up. But this has started to show up a lot of other places. We printed it out really inexpensively and put it on the windows while stuff was being done in construction. I really liked working with the owner. He has great ideas. He came to me with these, he finally got his menu together, and he came to me with the names for the dogs. And they were just really fun names. They were all regional. His concept was to curate the best dogs from around the country. So we had cool things like the Dirty Jers and the Whistle Pig and the Char Heel. And these are gonna live on in a lot of other places. We're gonna do buttons. They're gonna start to show up on the menu. This stuff is actually all really happening. So I apologize for the varying quality of some of this stuff. This is the menu that we're working on right now. Physical menu board that we're doing. We're doing a lot of fun little things like wooden nickels for free hot dogs. The kitchen shirts are very old school, just like plain. We've done some patches, doing a lot of apparel. Here. The media kit, just stuff we send out to the media just to keep costs down. It's just going to be rubber stamped. So this plain brown pocket folder rubber stamped, and then we're doing printed glassine bags, so it feels like almost like food being pulled out of this bag. And hats for the kids, paddle ball, pinky ball, tattoos, make the kids look really tough. Little mustard barbed wire action happening there. We're doing about 50 VIP kits. So these are just going to be really industrial plain metal lunch boxes that we put swag in and send out to some VIPs locally to try to get them there for the grand opening. And they just have a bunch of cool stuff in them. This was a sketch that I got from the owner. I love this. The fact that he said, "Hey, I got an idea in my head, and here's kind of what I'm thinking for the carry-out window." And so I developed a bunch of concepts that I felt like kind of encapsulated what he was trying to do. This was our chosen concept, and I think the true measure of success is when the owner of the restaurant fondles your sign. I think that's, like, he's just so, look at him, he's so excited about it. This guy loves signage. He loves all the same things I do, so it's really cool. I love how hot it's back there too. It's really So this is the finished sign. It was just put up like last week. It's internally lit and it has some neon on the outside. This is the marquee sign that's on the roadway. And then there's a big arrow sign that actually wraps the corner of the building. This was in the shop. This was them installing it. And then this was the sign installed. I actually took that shot on Friday before I took off, so very recent. And then that's the marquee sign. I almost got in a fist fight over this. We hired a guy to hand paint an area of the building, and I came out and he had spray painted it. And we got in a big argument about what hand painting signage is. And so he did tell me that spray art is the new hotness and nobody hand paints anymore. So just in case you guys were wondering. This guy's like older than me too. I'm like, who says new hotness? This is field testing some trucker hats. That's my son on the left. And that's the program director at the restaurant who I've worked with a long time on the right. And it's just a blast. I mean, I've loved being around the project. I get to influence materials a little bit. I mean, we have an architect, and this was, again, I shot this on Friday before we were taking off. And the owner just has great ideas. This was his idea. He had a welder friend, and there's this center area, and he's making a light fixture out of a drum set. And it's just really cool. So it's been a great project. This is the site that's currently being built. Nav's getting cut off a little bit there. So, I mean, I guess you never know. I mean, a very weird chain of events there that led to a really great project. So just keep the level of your work high, and you don't know who's going to see it, and keep pushing forward. The other big project that I wanted to take you guys through was probably one that you've heard of, maybe. So after the Dunkin Donuts project way back when, I got the bug to do stuff for myself. I was like, this is great. You know, I did this work, people saw it. It's really satisfying. I got to kind of do what I wanted. So I was looking for something to do, and I thought back to all the Nike shoes I'd ever owned. I was like this, I'm not the sneakerhead that has like a whole closet of sneakers, but I love sneakers. So I thought back of all the shoes, the Nike shoes I'd ever had. And I thought, well, I'll just, you know, I'll start illustrating them just as like this weird kind of personal timeline of all the shoes I'd owned. It'll kind of force me to develop an illustration style around it. I really had kind of left illustration behind to be more of a corporate designer. And so I did this whole series of things, and it was great. It didn't get a ton of response, but it was a lot of fun. And at the end of that, this was always my favorite. This is the Air Max 1. It was from 1987. And I thought this would be a cool canvas to take this one shoe and do it as many ways as I could think of. And my original thought was to do it really quickly, like I would do an hour each. And so they started out as, I made a couple of rules for myself. The shoe couldn't change position, and I couldn't add things to the shoe necessarily. It really had to be somehow changing the shoe. And so I started doing things that were just really basic. I mean, they're changing colorways and just starting to integrate some concepts. And I was messing around. This is a Voltron shoe, if anybody remembers Voltron. And I love doing these vague names where people might not get it, and that's okay. That's actually half the fun. Well, I was messing with this one shoe. I build everything in Illustrator and then bring it over to Photoshop, and I was doing that, and I was like, that looks like a Draplin shoe. That's kind of interesting. So I did a Draplin shoe, and I sent it to him, and he put a comment on my site that he wears Saucons. Which is okay, I still like him, it's all right. But it really changed the project. Like the project started rolling in this direction, and now it's rolling in this direction. So it's like, that was cool. Somebody who has a lot of eyes on his site just posted my work, and now other people have eyes on my work. And so I started exploring styles of illustrators that I loved. Invisible Creature, huge fan of theirs. So what would they do if they had to illustrate this shoe? And as a guy that hadn't been doing a lot of illustration for a while, I could explore all these styles. It's like I could dig in, like forensics. How does this work? How do I do it myself? So I did a Charles Anderson shoe, Frank Chimero shoe, Chip Wass shoe, did a Jessica Hish shoe. And then I started, like, it became even weirder. It was like some of them I would start on them, and it was like, wait, there's actually a concept here that could now be translated into something different. So like Mark Weaver had this print, and I really loved it. And I'm like, well, I could actually not just copy his style, but it actually starts to meld into the concept of the shoe. It's like I could really play with that too. So this is the Small Stakes, Jason Munn, great poster designer. So I did my version of it. And I did a whole series of these. I did it for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I wrapped up with a Nicholas Felton shoe that had all the stats of all the project, and used the shoe as a way of doing this. So I had a full head of steam at this point. I'm like, I'm going to do 100 of these things. It's going to be awesome. So I really started to make it my own. I started to do my own designs. I wasn't copying styles anymore. I was letting the concept lead the style. I got to dig into the whole Batman. This was my Adam West and Michael Keaton, Michelle Pfeiffer, Catwoman shoe. I got to do the Christian Bale shoe and the Heath Ledger shoe. I got to explore my Star Wars nerdery. So this is my Han Solo frozen in carbonite shoe. And so I had a lot of fun with this. I got to really, do whatever I wanted. I loved putting the little titles on them. It was a lot of fun. And then I left that behind, and I started doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So if you're ever confused about how to wear your shoes, not on your hands, not on your head, don't do it. Then I started incorporating some photography in, and again, it was fun. How do I do this, and how do I get it to work in the same position? How do I get it to work as a set? I even kind of poked fun at sneaker culture, the fact that we idolize these shoes. Some of them were quick. This literally took 2 minutes to scrawl it on my hand and take the shot. And this was my Lego shoe. Got to incorporate stuff around the house. My son's Legos everywhere, so that's a great idea. And what if Rick James had become the Hulk? We all wonder that, don't we? Could inspire something like that. And then I could really play with how much could I deconstruct it? How much could I take it apart? How minimal could I get with it? What kind of shapes could it become? How do I play one off of the other? And so in my glory towards 100 shoes, I thought, 50 shoes sounds pretty good. And this was my 50th shoe. And so I really left it behind for about 6 or 8 months, and during that time I kept getting a lot of interest. I kept getting people ask about the project and want to buy various things and refer to my earliest comment. Those people are all liars, so they're not going to be around when you actually spend money on something. But Kickstarter came around, and a couple of design-centric projects had done really well on Kickstarter. So this is the Designing Obama and Frank Chimero's Shape of Design, and those did really well. And I thought, well, I'll put it up on Kickstarter and see what happens. And part of my concept was, at this point I had 60 shoes done. And so the partnership angle was something I was really going to play up. So while you're pledging on this project, I'm going to be finishing these last 40 shoes. So I spent a lot of time exploring what the book was going to look like, spreads, just all the behind the scenes stuff you need to do to price this stuff out. What are my rewards going to be? I could do stuff that cost me nothing. I could offer some higher end stuff for people that wanted it, and I tried to make everything just look very tangible. These are all Photoshop mocks. So I got everything in place. I got my pricing in place. I drove down to Charleston. I have a good friend who's a filmmaker there, and he sat me in a chair and interviewed me about the project, and he had some great ideas for the video. And then, I don't know if any of you have ever done a Kickstarter project, but it's a very nerve-wracking thing when you have to, I figured I'd hit the launch button and there'd be just rounds of approvals and stuff would happen. It's literally launched like right away. So I had a little problem at this point. I actually still had to do 40 shoes. So I'm sure many of you have stared at the blank page, and it was I had a case of, I didn't really want to do shoes anymore. And so I had to work myself into a point where I did. And so I explored a lot of ideas. I did a lot of sketching, a lot more sketching. I started exploring materials for the book during this time. and kept sketching, and then I would sketch something and then I would mock it up, say, hey, is that going to work as an entry? More sketching. My kids started to go nuts. I'd come home, there'd be M&Ms, you know, made into a shoe. My son presented that to me one day when I got home. And then this was the very first one that I actually did. I liked the idea of this, and so I produced this shoe that was about these little Polaroids of all the years that it had been around. And then I started to get ahead of steam again, and I started, you know, really digging in, and I think all of you as creatives have probably felt that feeling when you get hooked into something. You know, it's easy. You know, it starts to feel like you want to do it. You can't wait to work on it. And the ideas are flowing, and that's the place I got with this again. This was kind of a highlight, you know, to see my wife walk in while I'm cutting a piece of butter in the shape of a Nike swoosh, and she just kind of gives me that look and then walks back out. It's important work, honey. Really important. So she's a patient woman. My yellow submarine shoe. This one was cool. You probably can't see a lot of it, but I worked a lot of my family's name into this one, and just friends who'd been really supportive about the project, and this little pirate map. My Predator shoe. So it got done, and the project got funded, and it was great. And I worked with a printer out of Iceland, and during all this time, I got to start to imagine. I'm like, what does 1,000 books look like? Like, does this fit in my house? Or I had no context for it. But that one day, I got a call from home, and they arrived, and that's what 1,000 books looks like. That's my child labor over there on the left. And so it became this crazy life of separating and packing and shipping, and I got to know the post office really well, and I'd show up every day, and I got to waste a bunch of money on misprinted postage. And this was my buddy. This isn't a cart, by the way, this is a hamper, and if you don't call it a hamper, the post office people get really mad at you, so it's a hamper. And then this is just some shots of the finished book. And I was real happy with the quality and the printing, and it was, you know, it was mine. I did it. I got feedback on it, but I got to do it the way I wanted to do it. I got to produce it at a quality that I was really happy with. Once I had the books, I did a little artist series where there was 100 of those available, numbered, and then I did a poster, and this poster combines elements of all my favorites into a single poster. And then got a site up, and that's where I'm currently selling them. If you want to go check out, you can see all 100 of them online and get a little more info about the project at max100project.com. Some interesting things came on the heels of this. I mean, this sneaker store in Germany wanted to convert part of their store to be a Max 100 section of the store for a few months. So they sold prints on the back wall, and they had a big book release party, and they bought a bunch of books, and it was really cool. They actually produced a one-of-one pair of Air Max 1s that were sort of a tribute to the series, which was neat. And then there's a sneaker show in Dubai this past couple months ago. I was actually invited until I found out that the flight is like literally 30 hours. And it's like, I can't do that. So, but it would have been fun. I didn't have enough time to pull that off, but they did an entire gallery section. So we did large prints, and they had books there as well. And that was just really cool to be involved in that. And I actually did my first kind of official thing with Nike. Was Nike Middle East wanted me to do 4 illustrations based on 4 of their running categories. So this was Air, and this was their free running category, and then the waffle, and this was the lunar series. And I also did some stuff for them, just branding wise, some different posters and flyers, which was a lot of fun. And I'm currently working with a local streetwear shop that we're doing a series of 10 box sets, and each of the shoes is based on an individual illustration. and they're going to be produced as one of ones, and we're going to do a book release party, and they're going to be auctioned off for charity. So this was just a lot of fun to try to interpret, you know, one of the illustrations in a different way. So that's like the seedless watermelon shoe, got the picnic table on there. And, this was the meat shoe. Everybody wants a meat shoe, right? So I've got. And then, you know, it's been interesting. I mean, do the kind of work that you want to do in the future, because I've gotten a lot of little sneaker-related things, which is a lot of fun. I love that. I just developed this logo for Sneaker News, which is like the second biggest sneaker site. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Does anybody know who this is? Who said that? Nice. Well, a friend of mine was asking me, like, when I was halfway through the project, he's like, what's your goal for the project? I said, I want to get the book produced. That's it. That's what I want to do. He said, well, yeah, but what else? And I said, I want a destroyer jacket. I don't know if anybody knows what a destroyer jacket is. And I want to know that Tinker Hatfield, who created this shoe, designed the Air Max 1, has designed most of the Jordans. He was the first kind of rock star shoe designer. And he actually inspired the project by his video I saw of him about the development of the shoe and how he was inspired. So I said, and my second goal is to just know that he got the book and that he liked it. And I got a contact with Nike, and I got the book in his hands, and so now we're BFF, which is really cool. So, he actually sent me a really nice email this past week, and so that was cool. But we're not BFF that I know of anyway. So interestingly enough, the Nike work actually led to doing a lot of work with Facebook, which they're looking for someone who could morph into kind of their Facebook style. So I've done a lot of work with them, a little more conceptual than what they've typically done, but they needed somebody that could really kind of work in their existing style. So I've done a lot of things that go on a lot of their launch pages and stuff like that, which has been a lot of fun. The style's even evolved a little bit to become a little less flat. I've done some kind of random things for them that you would probably never see. They're all internal stuff where I was doing some illustrations for big brands that they work with and trying to interpret it in kind of a children's book style. So these were all done for that. And I actually, 4 months ago, quit my job and was out at Facebook for 3 months. So I was home for a week, and now I'm out here with you guys. I was out at Facebook on a 3-month contract, and my family got to come out and see me out there. And this is my son. He's so thrilled to be at Facebook. They have this big wall that's Sign the Wall, and it's literally like a wall, and that's him in front of the wall. So it was just a blast, and I couldn't help but think the whole time I was out there, it's like, I'm out here at Facebook because I drew a bunch of shoes. I mean, that's like, it's so random and so weird, but I would step back and I would just think about what it can mean to kind of pursue something that you care about, to pour yourself into it, and to do it really well. And it was just some cool moments to think about that. And so this is where I'm supposed to say something wise. And I have a few things, and maybe there's some wisdom in it. And I wanted to read you a quote that I really love and that I've been thinking about a lot during this. And it's a quote by Theodore Roosevelt, and you may have heard it, and it's called the Man in the Arena quote. And I just really love it. It's meaningful to me. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither knew victory nor defeat. That's just really meaningful to me. I think my career has been a very safe career. and I've made a lot of decisions based on safety. And I thought Tad's words were great yesterday. You know, take a risk every couple of years. I think it's really important to grow you as a person. So fight to do the kind of work you want to do. You're probably looking here going, I don't have time. I've got a 9-to-5 job and I've got to pay my bills. And so the question is, what can you give up? How much do you want to do a different kind of work? Because it's going to take sacrifice. The book, I look back on the book and I don't even know how I did it. Not to congratulate myself, but it's like, how did I physically do that? And it was early mornings, it was late nights. And so just figure out what's important to you. I think taking risk helps you figure out what's important to me. I was out at Facebook for 3 months, sort of plucked away from my family and doing something in a completely different environment that stretched me in tons of ways, and it helped me figure out a lot of what was important to me. I got more satisfaction out of doing a local restaurant project. So it's important that I work with somebody and it feels really personal, and I get to inject a little bit of my personality into it. That's really important to me, and it really, that never would have happened if I hadn't done that. I spent a lot of time trying to ask people for the right answer over the last 2 years. Like, okay, how do I go out on my own? Like, how do I do this? And I would get, well, save up a little bit of money and then quit. And that was kind of the answer. And I think there's wisdom in getting wisdom from people, but at some point you've got to make the leap. And I don't think anybody has it figured out as much as we think they do. Like I would look at people and go, oh, that guy, you know, if I could just talk to that guy, he could tell me how to do this. But the reason it's called a risk is because it's a risk. We can't get enough information to make it not a risk. So, and then the last thing I'd leave you with is no Starbucks or Nike or whoever is going to come knock on your door. You've got to make some momentum. People are attracted to that momentum. They're attracted to that forward movement. They're attracted to people that are making stuff happen. And that's not going to happen until you just start moving. So I think you just really have to make your own momentum. It's going to feel awful at first. It's going to feel really hard. But once you start rolling, it gets easier and easier. And once you have a few victories, it gets easier and easier. So thanks for your time. I appreciate it.